guys, Demoman here with another video for you. That's right, we're jumping right back into Star Citizen Warzones. Right, so this is going to be the last episode of Star Citizen Warzones, and then we're going to do some theorycraft videos later down the line. I really want to do a video on the Corsair, but I'd rather do it once the Q&A has been released, so I can cover it completely for you guys. And I mean absolutely completely. I will be doing a video on the new Argo tow truck, and that will be a comprehensive video because it'll include the Q&A, the brochure, the lot, everything. I'll be throwing everything in there. So stay tuned for that. So let's dive right in here. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about invasion. Now, what is invasion? Okay, so the past two battle scenarios, the first one was probably going to be the most common form of battle scenario that will happen, is general squad combat and maybe even squadron combat between fighters and things like this, nothing too major. Then you dial it up a notch and you have people making planetfall, trying to take an outpost off of someone else, and this is for relatively smallish organizations that don't have any real like orbiting defenses. But this is a full-scale invasion with full bells and whistles and the alerts to go out ahead. So Team A are the defenders. They know that Team B is coming, and they've mustered what they can, like their best stuff that they can get a hold of, their most advanced ships, and whoever's on hand at the time. Team B, however, as the attackers, have basically been planning this out for a long time, and they've got their best assets together to do the attack. Now, when a type of situation like this happens, you need to remember two major details. When it comes to the defenders, they only have to destroy enough of the attacker's ships to make the planetfall side of the invasion impossible, because on the planet there will obviously be other defenses such as turrets, ground vehicles, and perhaps even some reserve flyers to take out stuff as the enemy starts to basically deploy their forces onto the ground. Team B has a harder task. Sure, they may be the attackers, they may have the element of surprise or whatever, but the problem here is, as they attack, the major issue will be they have to basically keep a tally on how much stuff they've lost, and if they lose a major asset, the entire attack will be called off, and their entire invasion will be spent, like, you know, all the resources would have been wasted, the manpower would have gone to waste, you name it. The biggest things in Star Citizen will be manpower and like large assets such as larger ships, not necessarily even capital ships. Large ships are going to be one hell of an asset because they're going to be one hell of a grind in the game, and manpower such as time and stuff, because your organization could be out doing things, making money. When you do something like this is an all hands on deck kind of scenario where you gather everyone together, you tell everyone the plan, the battle strategy, and you all work together. Now, I will be doing a video later down the line on ship, let's say fleet layouts. So what ships would work best together if you were to use multiple ships at the same time. Basically fleet tactics and that sort of stuff. I really want to dive into that for you guys because I've seen a couple of requests lately, and yeah, let's do that. But I've got a lot of stuff planned in the future. So let's get on to this video and basically talk about what's going to be happening. Okay, so Team A. Team A have basically, they know there's an attack going to happen, and they've spent a while trying to pull their resources maybe in this sector. Team B have been smart. They've maybe chosen an area of Team A's organization that Team A, like, you know, in terms of their space or their one of their major assets, and gone, right, we're going to attack this point here. It's the last thing they'd expect, or maybe they'd expect it but not quite like this. So what happens here? Okay, so Team A, they have, let's say, a space station. They've pulled their resources, they've purchased a station. It's got some minor defenses on it, nothing too major, but it's what's below the station is what really matters. Below that, they have a huge resource mining sort of platform base they've constructed. Maybe it's a series of outposts strung together with multiple mining drones, or maybe it's this huge mining structure that we just haven't seen like in the game yet, that we will be able to purchase, because Chris Roberts and Tony Z have made it very clear that we will be able to purchase nodes such as space stations, outposts, be able to build outposts, but who knows what else we'll be able to build in the future. But when it comes to these things, I guarantee you this is what will basically either make or break an organization. Their choice of building certain things and how much money sink it will be, but how much they will get in return in the long run. It's sort of like a, let's say, an investment. So Team A are a cautious organization. They have not bought any big capital ships. They have spent all their resources on buying structures. They've purchased, well, they've basically over the period of a couple of months have had a space station in the stages of construction, and it's finally complete, and they also have their mining base also up and running. And obviously for the first few months of its once it's finished, you'll have a lot of player activity around there for that organization, maybe a lot of defensive ships, but as time goes on, their players might get a little bit more relaxed, and they might think, okay, we don't need all of our defensive ships here, we'll leave a couple, and let's go do some other stuff elsewhere while this just makes us money. And they have maybe a small contingent of people behind. But Team B has been watching in the shadows since the very beginning, and they know now is the opportune time to strike. So they've turned the key, and they're ready to go kick some ass and take some names. So Team A have 2 hammerheads stationed at the station itself, docked with the station, just in case in the event of an emergency. They have 3 anvil arrows on hand that can be scrambled, and 1 Aegis saber. Their defenses in terms of ships is not over the top, it's not crazy. But Team B, however, aren't foolish. They've brought out the big guns. They brought a Kraken. It's got 3 Hawks on the deck. Maybe not all, it's not fully loaded with ships. It also has a Anvil Valkyrie fully loaded with guys, however, on the deck as well. And it also has a Corsair. And I know I had to throw the Corsair in there. It's such a cool looking ship. And yeah, they're ready to rock and ruin. So they've got 1 Corsair, 3 Hawks, 1 Valkyrie, and 1 Kraken. And you might be thinking, whoa, that's a lot. It's like, yeah, that is a lot, but it's necessary in these types of scenarios. Now remember, ships' time to kill is going to be increased. Time to disable is what it's going to be about in the future. So here I'll set the scene. So Team A, they're on the scanners of their space station, which are far superior to most ships. They've got like the humongous sensors so they can detect things on like a large scale around them, and probably even down to the planet itself. So they're just watching their scanners, they're minding their own business, and all of a sudden the sirens wail. The guy on the scanner suddenly yells, you know, we've got a bunch of ships entering the system, or entering our area, our space, or whatever. What are we gonna do? They hail Team B. Team B ignores the hail. They see the amount of firepower. They see Team B. Team B ignores the hail. Team A then scrambles their craft. They get all their guys on their hammerheads, and their anvil arrows are now powering up, and the Aegis saber, which was parked at the station by chance, is now basically being ready to made and able to fly. So Team A are a little bit at a disadvantage. And you might be thinking, how? They just got an early warning. Well, they have to scramble their guys to their ships. There could be a lot of confusion in this time period, because maybe you've practiced flying with a group of guys. Hell, you may have even practiced, you know, like doing call-outs on board a larger ship. You've practiced weapons training and that sort of stuff on things like the Hammerhead now, which is a very important thing I recommend you do, because if you don't, then you might have a little bit of a communication meltdown mid-combat. So the guys have trained on board these hammerheads. They've trained to have combat discipline. The guys in the anvil arrows, they're more of a lone wolf types. They don't really work as a team too often, so they tend to do their own thing, and maybe each one of them is a little bit more like, well, if I call for help, then he should come help me, but each one of them thinking that there's a problem. They haven't trained together as a group, unlike the hammerhead crews, which know how to operate the same ship together. So as everyone's running for their ships, this is where the confusion comes in. Someone might say, oh, what hammerhead am I going on? And then 3 people might answer them, and they still won't have the right answer, because that was 2 different answers from 3 different people. So there might be a bit of confusion when they're getting their ships up and running and ready to go. So there's a delay. So the way this will happen is the Saber will probably launch first, but if the pilot is smart, he will wait. He won't just, you know, basically kick on the afterburners and fly head first down the dragon's throat, because that'll end badly. I mean, you know, not too many people get eaten by a dragon and have something good to say about it. That said, I don't think there are dragons, so, you know. Yeah, let's move on from that metaphor. So Team B. Team B are already prepared. They've had everyone in their ships as they're quantuming towards their destination. Everyone's ready to go kick some ass and take some names. Now, the Corsair is unique in this regard, is because, yes, it is labeled as exploration, air quotes. I've never seen a more heavily armed ship of its size. I'm not even kidding. This thing has got more teeth on it than Freddie Mercury. And Freddie Mercury had some killer teeth. And he also made some pretty badass music. So, yeah, that's a good thing. If anyone out there wants to name their Corsair the Mercury, go for it. Do it. It would be so cool. Or Freddy, do it. Yeah, so I may have named a couple of Corsairs out there by accident just now. So, back to the scenario. The Kraken, however. The Kraken is not only a really good transport method for getting ships from A to B, it is an amazing command and control center for operating fleet organizations such as this. Like this small fleet has all the command and control capabilities necessary from the Kraken. But the Kraken has something else that other bigger, larger ships may not be aware of. It has a repair bay. That means if they win the battle, they can repair those same ships and then win the war. And that's a big deal. It also has a large amount of cargo, so you can carry relatively like a lot of supplies, surplus material, land vehicles, and you also have those humongous guns. You have the 2 size 8s. Now, these weapons, you might be thinking, yeah, that 2 size 8s, it's not that scary. Well, you need to remember, the dual size 8s are the same. That cannon there is the same main armament of a Javelin class destroyer in terms of its spinal mount. That's the same size gun. This is designed to punch holes in other capital ships. It's not a joking matter. Something else. It does have remote turrets, but a lot of its turrets are manned, which means if an EMP does go off, those manned turrets will be able to basically be more functional and whatnot quicker than the remote turrets. When the remote turrets go out, the camera goes out, so you cannot see in the event of an EMP. However, manned turrets, you still have the gunner who can call out targets. He can still see things. That's a huge difference, and it's very important to remember that. A lot of people prefer remote turrets, but just remember, in the event of an EMP, it's done, it's over. Also, another side fact is, if the gunner does get killed by the shields drop however on the ship, and some ballistic rounds fly through the glass, someone else can still operate that turret. However, if the same was to happen to a remote turret, it would be done for. Either the camera would be destroyed or the turret itself would be rendered useless. There's the problem with the remote turrets. But the Kraken's lucky because it has a lot of manned turrets, and they're frickin' savage. I'm not even kidding. It's got a lot of firepower. So on board the Kraken is their major landing craft. We'll put 3 Tumbrel Novas on the Kraken. It also has a contingency of dragonflies and a group of guys waiting in the wings to drop, like, you know, when the Kraken lands. However, most of their manpower is in their Valkyrie. Now, I love the Valkyrie, don't get me wrong. I think it's such a cool ship. It's one of the coolest ships in the game. For like honestly, seriously, it's just so freaking cool. It's basically a dropship from Aliens. But the biggest issue I have, I think, yeah, it's got a good troop transport capability, but it's a lot of guys on board the same ship. If that was to detonate, right, God forbid the worst should happen. If its engines were gunned down as it basically comes through the atmosphere and then crashes into the planet's surface and blows up, that's a lot of people that have just died. That's a lot of people. Chances are a lot of them will be permadead too, so that's not good. That's like really bad. So I think the Valkyrie is something you bring down once you have secured the airspace from, like, you know, or like you've basically secured the area and then secured a drop zone. That's when you drop the troops off, and then the Valkyrie, once it's empty, you can be as reckless with it as you like. But when it's got troops on board, you have to treat that thing as if it's like made of tin foil. You really do, because there's a lot of angry people that will not be happy if you've basically just sent them on the tip of the spear, you know? It's like, oh, put the Valkyrie at the front, they'll lead the charge. It's like, you sure it's a good idea? That's like a lot of guys, they die. It's like, ah, they'll be fine. Yeah, 40 really, really angry Joes will not be good. So, yeah, so let's crack on here. Cracking on here. Yeah. Oh, man, my puns are awful. Right, so, Team A. They've scrambled their hammerheads. They've got people together. They're now detaching from the station in glorious fashion. It looks amazing. The 3 anvil arrows are impatiently circling the station. The Aegis Saber is following in behind. The Saber pilot. So, the Saber pilot will give Team A a little bit of a bonus here because, all things considered, they are a little bit screwed here. So, the Aegis Saber pilot is an ace. This guy knows how to fly. He's spent literally, like, you know, 10,000 hours, you know, or well, not 10,000, let's say 1,000 hours of Arena Commander non-stop combat flight time. Okay, you might be thinking, well, that's not that good compared to the actual flying experience. Well, this guy's also played maybe, let's say, over 1,000 hours of dogfighting in the persistent universe as well. So this guy knows a thing or two about piloting. And the thing is, a really good pilot in a scenario like this can really, really, really make the difference. Like, they can win a battle almost alone. But when you bring in the larger ships, that's where the ace pilot starts to basically shine less and less and less. And if they do not use teamwork, they're done. That's it, it's over. Because all it takes is the teamwork on board a larger ship. If they see something that's a threat, if all those gunners can coordinate quick enough, they can bring all their guns to bear on one fighter, and that fighter is toast. They are done for. There is nothing left to recover from the wreckage other than ashes and broken dreams. So, moving on. So, Team A, their ships are slowly leaving the station, lumbering hammerheads. As we know, the hammerhead is god-awfully slow. Oh, it's so slow, but it's a tank. It's an armored behemoth. It's a freaking monster of a ship in terms of area denial. It's got a lot of really big guns. The best at taking out fighters, and if you can coordinate them correctly, you can destroy capital ships with them easy. So, you know, there's something to consider there. Team B, however, this is not their first rodeo. They've done this a couple of times before, and they've learned from their previous mistakes. Maybe their first invasion, they got major damage and lost a lot of forces, had to retreat. Second invasion, they came against overwhelming odds and, you know, did a little bit better. So they're really confident. They've learned along the way. The Kraken's crew, however, will be really, really, really experienced for one major reason. Krakens will be out long before other capital ships because of their industrial purpose. Maybe this Kraken was not used in combat previous, but it was either used for trading runs, salvage, or mining assistance operations. And you might be thinking, how would a Kraken be used for mining? Well, you can cover the whole thing in prospectors pretty much, and you can use it as a repair bay for them too if they take damage from mining. And it's also got a large store for like cargo and stuff, so you can transport cargo material from the mining vessels to the hold, so you can stay out there for longer. That way the gunners and the crew are familiar with their ship's layout, which is one, very important. Two, they have a lot of training on the guns and whatnot. Maybe they were bored and they start shooting asteroids, or they have to hold off the odd scavenger attack or whatever. So, the Kraken's crews are expertly trained. They know what they're doing. They're smart. The Corsair group, however, they're a little bit more roguish. Yeah, Rogue One, I did it. I had to say it. It is basically a Star Wars Imperial shuttle. Come on, I mean, am I gonna be the only guy to say this? The Corsair is an Imperial shuttle, that's what it is. So we're gonna have to fill it up with a group of guys who think they can win the war all on their own. So that'll be the Corsair crew. The Three Hawks, they're on the Kraken's deck. They've trained together, because they don't have missiles and they've got EMPs. They've had to train together in order to basically use their ships to the best effect. The Valkyrie, however, the pilot's a little bit skittish. The gunners are not too familiar with the ship. Maybe they've cycled out the gunners because these guys are new or whatever. And the Marines on board are, let's say, a little bit apprehensive that they may not even reach their destination. So there's a lot of worry going on in those ships. As the battle would start, what would oftenly happen is you would have the biggest guns firing first because they would outrange everything else. So as the ships approach, the Kraken crew is smart. They line up their ship so that their primary armament, like on the nose, their bunch of major guns, start to fire downrange, and they completely ignore all the smaller ships. And they ignore the 2 hammerheads on purpose. The shells start pounding into the side of the station shields light up, and the hammerhead crews start to panic because they're like, oh, they're gonna destroy the space station. At this point, whoever's in charge of the operation may be on board the space station itself, and if he is inexperienced in these matters and considering they've never been attacked before, he will basically put everybody else's neck on the chopping board before his. He'll be like, oh, I'm not losing the space station, you know, like, everyone go out there, attack. So as his panicked yells basically fill the comms, Team A's craft race into action. So the 3 anvil arrows and the saber go off as a lone squadron directly towards the enemy ships. At this point, the anvil hawks, the corsair, without the Valkyrie stays on the deck of the Kraken for the time being. As these ship squadrons, so we've got 1 corsair and 3 hawks, as they fly off away from the Kraken, they do an old loop around. So they're basically looking like they're going to do a flanking maneuver. So the 3 anvil arrows, they're a little bit cocky, they'll go straight in for the kill. The saber pilot is a little bit apprehensive. He's trying to tell them, hey guys, we got to work as a team to achieve like the goal here. But these guys are hotshots, they're completely ignoring him. They think they've got this. They've not had as much flight time experience, so they haven't learnt yet, like, you know, like maybe the rules of engagement, or you could say how not to get your ass blown up. So these guys don't really have that on their mind. They just think that they're going to win because they believe they're the good guys. Here's the thing. I need to get into all of your heads right now. Almost every conflict you get into, everybody will think that they are the good guy. That is the problem. Look at war. You don't see people going, oh, are we the bad guys? You know, that doesn't happen. Everybody thinks that they're the good guy. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So Team A and Team B believe they are doing the job for the greater good. Yeah, Tau Empire. But they believe they're basically doing stuff like, you know, basically to make the verse a safer place. Team B believe eliminating this organization's major assets will stop them from throwing their weight around against smaller organizations in their area, which they may have been doing. Team A, however, think that Team B, the invading force, must be pirates because they're attacking them for no apparent reason. So both sides think they're the good guys, and this is why cocky pilots are going to be the first to die. So the 3 anvil arrows racing to action. They scream towards they close in on the corsair, completely ignoring the hawks. They think if they take out that ship that the rest of the hawks will flee. The saber pilot, however, doesn't think that. He thinks that the major target will be the smaller, fast-moving targets because they'll be the hardest to destroy and they can get away easy. So the saber breaks off from the main group. 3 anvil arrows charge the corsair and immediately get intercepted and hit with multiple EMPs. 2 of them get knocked out immediately as their controls frazzle out and their weapons become inactive. The corsair's main guns line up and just fire away, nuking 2 of the anvil arrows immediately. The 3rd anvil arrow then breaks away and tries to run. It's almost too late as the 3 hawks close in on it, but the saber then loops around, takes out one of the hawks almost immediately, and gets on a tail of another. Because of the saber's stealth systems and its stealth design, such as its hull being made of a special composite and its stealth components, it'll be really hard to track and target. So at this point, the Hawks pilots, like the remaining pilots, will be confused and they won't know where the hell this thing is. But this is the bonuses of a Corsair. The Corsair has a radar which should be powerful enough to detect this ship if it sends out a big enough ping. And obviously it doesn't mind because, you know, it already knows that the enemy are aware of it. So it sends out a large ping and detects where their saber is. At this point the saber doesn't have any backup. It's basically alone. The other Arrow pilot is now doubling back towards the hammerheads, which at this point are moving slowly straight towards the Kraken, because that's their primary target. The Kraken, now realizing that the plan has worked, starts to fire its main guns towards the hammerheads. The hammerheads on the approach are a very slim target. They're not big, they're not like very tall, you could say. They are wide, but they are a very thin silhouette, almost like a letterbox as it approaches. So that's one of the bonuses of our hammerhead. But the Kraken can do something that not many other capital ships can do. It can broadside the crap out of something. You don't necessarily, if you have a target that is hard to hit, you just need to put more guns on it, and then you can use the rule of, well, if you throw enough of anything, some will stick, right? I mean, you use, what is it? It's quantity has a quality all of its own. So the Kraken turns to broadside, and the cool thing about the Kraken's turrets is if you broadside, like you turn to the either the port or the left, the port or the starboard side, my bad. If you turn to the port or the starboard side, you can actually bring the primary weapons to bear on something that is either on your port or starboard, and your side turrets, and your rear turrets, so that's really effective. The Kraken turns side on and unleashes a barrage of hell. One of the Hammerhead pilots immediately realizes this and then pulls up and tries to pull away. The co-pilot yells at him, "What the hell are you doing?" And then all of a sudden he's now just sealed his fate, because he has just presented a much flatter, wider target. As all the turrets focus down that Hammerhead, its hull gets ripped apart as the shields drop almost immediately from the sheer concussion of enemy fire that's hitting it. All the like shells and stuff and lasers are pounding into the hull, bits are breaking off, turrets are being blown up, the crew are panicking, you have multiple guys running for emergency stations like such as the escape pods. The engineer realizes it's long since over. As he's running down a corridor, a shell penetrates the floor, detonates, splaying him all over the inside of the ship, killing him immediately, perma-dead, game over, he's done. Now the Hammerhead is disabled, it's not necessarily destroyed, the gunners then focus their attention on the next Hammerhead. However, this Hammerhead is now in missile range, and as we know, as of right now, the Kraken doesn't really have much in the way of many countermeasures. So as the missiles fire, they start to pound into the ship's shields, but the Kraken is quite a sturdy behemoth in terms of its shield tanking capability. But the Hammerhead does have a lot of damn firepower, man. I mean, it can crack most things. The Hammerhead almost lines up to get its guns to bear. But as all this is happening, now the Corsair's got a lock-on the Aegis Saber, unleashes all of its missiles. It doesn't really need them, it can be resupplied back at the Kraken anyway, so it fires everything it has. All the rockets are now chasing the Aegis Saber. He breaks away from the last remaining Hawk and tries to get away. The Hawk now on its tail detonates an EMP. The Saber is sort of paralyzed, not completely, but it's just enough so the missiles can hit it, and just as it detonates, it evacuates straight out of the top and survives. Now, here's the thing. The major issue why Team A failed in that scenario is because the Aegis Saber and the arrows didn't work together. If they had worked together as a team and they had trained together, they would know their strengths and weaknesses and how to work as a team correctly. They would know exactly how to basically roll the dice on certain things. Unfortunately, they did not train together. The 3 and 4 arrow pilots were pretty much hotshot, cocky, kind of, you know, like, I can take on anyone kind of guys, and they underestimated their enemy. Biggest problem, never underestimate your foe. If something looks like it's okay, you see Drake ships. Most people underestimate them because they'll say, it's made of cheap materials and lore and stuff, and they're not that sturdy. Well, you'd be surprised. A Cutlass Black is surprisingly sturdy if you're shooting at it with size 1, size 2, and hell, even size 3s. It can be quite a tank if it needs to be, and that's something to take in mind. Because a Drake ship can always swing around and carry on the attack, no matter sustaining horrendous damage, losing wings, engines, you name it, it will still be able to defend itself and attack relatively well. So that's something you need to remember. Sure, they may not be the most sturdy things in the world, but they are definitely dangerous because they are unpredictable, and that's something you need to remember. Also, another thing which is very, very important about Drake ships, you need to take note, is the fact that the crew who operate these ships know that there's no escape pods, there's no ejection seats, there's nothing to help them get out of trouble in a hurry, so these pilots are literally fighting for their lives. In the back of your mind, if you have an ejection seat, you have a little bit of you have a little bit of security to you, so you think, okay, maybe I can take a few more risks here and there, you know, but with a Drake pilot, they know that all the chips are down. Every time they engage someone, they know that that is it. It'll either end for them there or they will win. There is no two ways about it. So Drake pilots will always go hell for leather and push the pedal to the metal, unlike other pilots. Maybe you might have some pilots who are a little bit more courageous and whatnot and fight like that, but in the majority role, you need to remember either Drake pilots will either be really skittish. The second they start to lose, they'll peel off and run away, or they will stay to the bitter end. And that's something you need to be aware of and be careful when rolling the dice. So never ever play chicken in those types of scenarios, because you might not like how it ends. So, as the battle continues, the final Hawk hits its EMP on the Saber detonates, and now the Corsair and the Hawk double back to basically retreat towards the Kraken to help it deal with the remaining Hammerhead. At this point, the Hammerhead is now unleashing all of its turrets to bear, and it's mulching into the shields of the Kraken. The Kraken is firing back. Most of its shots are hitting the hull now of the Hammerhead. The shots are being exchanged at such a rapid rate. The Kraken shields are starting to fail, and this is when the Corsair approaches and starts laying some shots into the back of the Hammerhead, hitting its engines, knocking them out completely. The shields drop on the Hammerhead, and the shells start to pound into it, and it is completely done. It's disabled. It's wrecked. A shot hits the cockpit on the underside as the Hammerhead pulls up, killing the crew members entirely, and that's the end of it. The ship is disabled. So the rest of the crew on board the two Hammerheads are now getting to the escape pods and launching them. Something else to take in mind, escape pods. If a ship takes too much damage, they will go offline. As we have seen before in a damage state video which was done in the past for the, the Retaliator bomber, which is also part of my intro. So yeah, when the Retaliator takes too much damage, and any ship for this matter, you'll hear something which says, you know, ejection system, offline, and something like that. Depending on your ship's manufacturer, if it has an escape pod, if you take too much damage, some systems will be knocked out, such as these. So they might be thinking, okay, so Team B has lost only 2 Hawks, they've taken some damage to their Corsair, and their Kraken shields are quite low, so they're going to have to hang back. And their Valkyrie is relatively intact, it hasn't taken any damage. As the Hammerheads approached, maybe it fled. Okay, so their invasion force is relatively, you know, ready to go, it's ready to rock and roll. Now, that battle, that skirmish, you'll remember that the Kraken had to turn to basically broadside the hell out of something. So that means it now has to turn and then fly back around on the approach. But since shields are really low, possibly even down at this point, it has to wait until it can recharge them, because that space station may have some defenses, and they will be relentless, because that station will have almost limitless firing capabilities. Like the coolers on that thing will basically mean the turrets will be able to fire on a rotation almost indefinitely. So when attacking a space station, you have to have a lot of DPS, and I mean a lot. It's going to be very difficult to crack. Space stations will be going on the same component systems as ships, so they will be segmented into different areas. There will be coolers, there will be generators, reactors, shield generators. You'll have all of these things like you would do on a ship, and when they do take damage, they will take damage like a ship would. So there's that. Team A's defending team on board the space station have been preparing for this moment. Should the worst happen and their station come under attack, they should, they should be able to basically defend themselves and whatnot. Team A, however, made a huge fatal flaw. If a space station, you own a space station, you want to defend it, keep the ships there. Even if you're being bombarded from a distance, chances are those shots that are hitting you from a distance will not be enough to crack the shields, because your recharge rate, or the sheer volume of shields you have versus their rate of bombardment, it's one of those things. They won't really get through it in any time soon, and it'll probably even take maybe hours, multiple hours for them to make a difference, and by then you can even call in more reinforcements, so they'll have to leave. So what they should have done was keep their ships with their space station, because that's their biggest asset, is having all of those extra guns to bear on things as they fly around the station. So Team B approaches the station. The shields on the Kraken are recharged almost to full capacity. They start bombarding the station again as they get closer and closer and closer. All the shots are now hitting the station. Shields are lighting up. The Corsair and the remaining Hawk and the Valkyrie are waiting as another squadron just beside the Kraken, but letting the Kraken go in first. The Kraken now close in for brawling range. It turns to the port side and starts to broadside the hell out of the station. The station, however, is side parallel to the Kraken, and both, like the ship and the station, unleash a huge amount of fire into one another. Now this is going to be where it gets interesting. If Team B doesn't have the metal in terms of like the guts, you could say, to stick it out, because you got to stay in there until the bitter end, and you have to be a sponge. in this type of scenario. You have to absorb the enemy fire. The reason being is you're never going to be able to crack its shields, even maybe with a Kraken alone. Like, even with all its guns coming to bear on a space station, you may not be able to crack its shields. However, this is where the remaining ships come into play. So as the Kraken is there, offering a huge distraction as it's lighting up the station from everywhere, firing all of its guns broadside on, like that scene in Star Wars Episode 3 when you see the capital ships firing into each other. You just see lasers and shells being slung either side, explosions ripple across the shields on both crafts. This is where the Corsair, the Valkyrie, and the remaining Hawk swoop in from another angle. The Corsair doing strafing runs along the top of the station, trying to draw maybe some of the turrets off of the Kraken. The Hawk EMPing sectors, obviously not doing much, but just generally scaring the occupants on the inside, while the Valkyrie slips under the net and lands on one of the many landing pads. It deploys its cargo full of Marines as they storm the building. Now, this is where infantry really make the difference, okay? This is where they really make it, like, they can turn the tide. These ships alone would not be able to basically take out a station. It's not going to happen. But with the troops, you can then destroy it from the inside. So, as the troops are cutting their way through the door, they finally get inside, and now they're able to operate as planned. With an invasion force, it's going to be very difficult if the enemy do have a station or some kind of orbiting platform, because you do have to neutralize it before you go to the ground, because otherwise you're going to present yourself problems. You could basically be blockaded and trapped either in enemy territory, like with no way, say your major attack fails, you'll be destroyed on your retreat. There's no way out. If you capture the node above it, essentially you can stop the enemy's escape from, like, you know, like the planet, like they'd have to fly along the planet's surface, which takes a lot of fuel, and if they burn all their fuel, then they're not going to be able to leave, basically. So there's that. So this station is now in this huge attack. This is where the Kraken crew would be wise to put all power to the shields and just try and hold out for as long as they can. The second the shields start to fail, they do need to leave, however, because if the shields fail on a Kraken and you're facing down a space station, chances are you might not escape, because the sheer volume of fire will easily chew through the hull of a Kraken, hell, any big capital ship really, and then eventually destroy it. You'll immobilize it first, but because it's a space station and it's basically classified as relentless, it will never cease to fire. It will always continue firing and firing and firing and firing. Even the small weapons, it doesn't matter, they will eventually plink away enough DPS to do some major damage. So as the lasers are flying, the crew on this space station are now jumping off the turrets. Turrets are being switched to automated, so now they're firing almost everywhere. And you have the crew, who maybe are not so well trained in the whole first-person combat thing, going up against dedicated Marines. Now the Marines have to be careful. If they get cocky in this scenario, they will lose, because any enemy in a area that they know better than, you know, their opponent, they know the lay of the land, and they can basically stage a defense where they bottleneck their enemy, they could essentially wipe out the Marines if they stage a good enough defense. However, everyone's scrambling around. As we know, the commander of Team A is completely incompetent, and he's yelling at everyone saying, how could you let these people get on board the space station? There is no way out, we're all gonna die, all that type of stuff, and that doesn't work well for anyone. So a couple of ships maybe in a repair bay are launched and people are fleeing the station. A couple of cutlasses fly out as crew members of the space station just bail on the commander at the time, or the lieutenant or whatever. He is panicking like crazy. The Marines are just walking through enemies, just nuking them left, right, and center. This is where you have to be careful. If someone wants to panic on the space station, and we don't know this as of yet, but space stations, if they function identical to ships, if they have a self-destruct mechanic, that will be catastrophic for both sides, because if the station goes up and goes nuclear, you're probably going to lose the Kraken because it's so close. Probably lose the Corsair because it's doing strafing runs. Definitely lose the Hawk. Maybe lose the Valkyrie if it's still sat on the landing pad. And definitely lose all of the troops. That's all 40 dudes just gone in one flash, plus the entire attacking force of Team B. However, we don't know that that's a possibility at the minute, so That's it. Team A will have lost at this point. Team B would have made a successful attack, maybe lost the Hawk as a turret switched to automated mode as they all focused down on that because maybe it was the closest target at the time. Maybe it was doing a low strafing run, doing an EMP. It got nuked, or maybe he just lost control and plowed into the side of the station. That's all possibilities. But the Corsair would have taken some severe damage. Maybe now it's incapable of landing on the planet, and it was carrying maybe the rover or the land vehicle that the troops were needing, so they don't have the mobility they would have. However, they still have the Kraken and the Tumbril Nova, so they can make a reasonably decent offensive attack. Now that's the thing about these ships. If you have a defensive mindset and you want to defend yourself, if Team A had an Idris P even, they would have easily won that scenario if they'd have just stuck with the space station. Hell, they could have won it with the ships they had if they just stayed with the space station. But therein lies the problem. If you have a group of guys who are essentially taking orders from someone who is not calm, they are not basically, they're not calm, they haven't got their thoughts together, they're very skittish, maybe they panic too much at the loss of major assets. And I'll tell you something now, everybody, there's not one person who is infallible to this. Everybody does go into panic mode one way or another. You have to basically get it out of your system. You have to basically learn to control it. Maybe if you're in the military, you've already learned to do that. But most civilians playing video games haven't learned that. People don't know these types of things. So, like, how I learned it, funnily enough, was I used to play a lot of Mech Warrior back in the day. And, yeah, there was a bunch of guys who would just basically say, you know, like, well, you gotta stay calm if you show, there was a buddy of mine called Holy Grail, because I always used to try and do the call-outs and stuff, and eventually it became my thing where I'd always tell the guys where to go. But at one point I was being attacked by multiple enemies, and I was like, oh crap, I'm under attack on the voice comms, and the team just started to disintegrate, and Holy Grail just said, it's okay, just remain chilled, and just say where they are, and say what you need to say, and that advice goes miles, and that's what I'll say to you guys is when the crap hits the fan, just remain calm, be completely chill, and that will keep everybody else calm, because if you panic, you will panic other people, and if they panic, they can't, you know, operate properly, and they're worried. All of a sudden thoughts of I'm gonna die starts flooding through their heads, and you know, the confidence goes out the window. If you remain chilled and controlled under pressure, so will they. Communication discipline is utmost important. It's what I recommend to all of you out there. If you run an organization, or if you're just a small group of guys, you're like a war band or whatever, practice communication discipline. Everybody suffers from it. Hell, even in my org we had a few moments where our communications went to shit in a large combat environment because one or two people didn't really get the message. They were just basically shouting out everything that was happening as it was happening, like we were listening to some kind of a radio show. But that's not their fault. They just were not prepared or trained for that. They didn't experience it before. And that's the thing. You gotta remember with Star Citizen, we are all gamers playing this, right? We are not playing this to have a mil-sim kind of, you know, like training or whatever. Not everyone does that. We're playing this because we want to basically live in the far future and fly kick-ass spaceships and go on our own little adventures. I mean, we're not here because we want to basically train 24/7 as dedicated military corps of the Space Corps, you know. It's like, we're not Buzz Lightyear, you know what I mean? We're not going to be there like, Star Command, come in, Star Command. You know, that's not how it rolls. Gamers are not soldiers. That's the thing people need to remember. So if you run an organization, please remember, you're gamers, the guys in there are gamers. They're not there to be soldiers. And hell, soldiers are not playing games to be soldiers. They're there to play games. They do enough of that in the real world. So you gotta treat everybody with respect. And that is what will keep your organization going. And even if you're a small group, that's what will keep it going. And it'll help you win almost every engagement you come across. You just gotta work as a team, keep your communication discipline down, and have a decent strategy. If you panic, if you worry, your strategy, your plan all goes to the out the window. And most people say, oh, plans, 90% of plans or all plans don't survive first contact with the enemy. Now, that is true to an extent. However, it's not completely true, because you can plan a defense and you can plan an offensive. Question is, if you remain calm. If you don't remain calm, then the plan goes out the window. If you remain calm, your plan, you can adapt on the fly, but the initial plan does remain the same. And if you execute it properly, you will always win. So this has been the last big sort of Star Citizen Warzone video in this series so far. I can continue the series if you are enjoying these types of videos. However, I would like to do a theorycraft video next on what would happen if an organization got control of a Bengal carrier, because we know that is a possibility. So that'll probably be the next video. Let me know if you'd like to see that. However, if you have any other ideas of what you'd like to see me make a video on, please post it in the comments below. I try to reply to all the comments. Stuff has been crazy for me lately, guys, because I have had to deal with a lot of life stuff, but I won't go into it. So I just want you to know, guys, I really do appreciate all the support. Everything you guys do is amazing. Like you watch the videos and you leave the likes and you comment and stuff. I really do love you for it, because that does go a long way. It lets me know that I'm doing a decent job, enough for you to come back and watch the videos. And to hell, even just, shoot the crap, shoot the breeze, and just talk with me about stuff. We just have a chat, we make a dialogue, and, we just have a little bit of the old chit-chat about Star Citizen. Maybe you guys have some ideas. Maybe you've seen something and you're like, hey, Demo Man, like you can do a video on this, or, hey, what's this? And does this do this? These sort of things really does go a long way. I love talking to you guys, and, I just want to give a real heartfelt thank you to the guys who make this actually happen. Like, without them, this would not be happening at all. I wouldn't be able to keep making videos like this. They make it financially viable for me. The Patreons are literally what keep this channel alive. And, like, yeah, I owe them, like, the biggest debt of gratitude. I'm not even kidding. A huge thank you to everybody who supported me on there and who is continuing to support me. You guys are amazing. So a huge thank you for those who have supported me in the past and who are supporting me now. So a huge thank you to Adrian Miller, Andrew Burton, Bill Bryant, Brandon Kelly, Brandon Manuel, David Toombs, Azumin, Ghost1800, Samuel Pitt, Tom Talaba, and Yellow. Bill Bryant. Bryant. Oh my god, I'm trying, Bill. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. But I tried Google text-to-speech on that one a couple of times, and it gave me a couple of odd translations, but you cleared it up in the comments, and I do appreciate that. I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you. You guys are what make this happen. Without you, there would be, like, eventually the videos would cease, and that would be the end of that. But you guys allow me to continue making videos, and I can't thank you enough. I have a huge thank you to give you guys. So I just want to say I love you all, and yeah, I wouldn't be doing this without you, so huge thank you. Also, I'd like to recommend you check out the links in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel via Patreon, check out the description, because all the information is down there. We got some kick-ass links down there too to some really groovy stuff. So yeah, check out that too. We got all sorts of goodness in there. So yeah, if you'd like me to do a video on a ship or any kind of ship, I will do it, as long as it's not completely brand new, because I am not going to jump on the bandwagon of everybody screaming about the same thing at the same time. That is pointless, because at the end of the day, it's good to have some variety in your weekly content, you could say, and not get bogged down with the whole everybody's yelling about the Corsair and what it has and all this good stuff. That's not really gonna help unless the Q&A is out, and then you can condense it into one video, and that's what I plan to do. So when the Q&A is said and done for the Corsair, I will do a detailed video on it, and I want to do a detailed video on the new tow truck Argo, but that is down to you guys to decide. So let me know if you'd like to see that Argo video done properly, and I will work on it, and I will put it out in the following week. Just put it down in the description below what you'd like to see. Would you like to see the Theorycraft video with the Bengal carrier that is run by an organization, and what would it take to stop it? Or would you like other types of videos, maybe about Star Citizen survival techniques for the lone player and things like this? So whatever you want, let me know in the description below, and I will make it into a video. So yeah, huge thank you again. Thank you so much for watching my videos. You know the drill, Commanders. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse. If you're looking for a Bar Citizen event, why not check out Bar Citizen San Antonio, Texas? That's right, there's a Bar Citizen event for you to go to. Check out the description for all the relevant information, such as a map, a link to their Discord, and all that good stuff. And I cannot recommend it enough. It's full of the nicest individuals you could possibly hope to meet, all itching to talk about Star Citizen and sci-fi and what the hell ever. So why don't you jump on down there and say hello to some of the guys, and I hope you have a wonderful and amazing time.